For the last 10 years of my life, I've been a translator. But I haven't translated from languages, but from the language of silence. I'm a perfumer, a nose, as they say in our profession. My job is to listen to the whispers of jasmine under the moon, a rose at dawn, or the damp earth after rain, and translate their stories into a language people understand, the language of scent. My universe is woven not from atoms but from olfactory molecules. I live in Grasse, a city frozen in an amber drop of floral absolute, and until recently, I was absolutely certain I understood this world better than anyone else. My gift, or curse, is a form of synesthesia. For me, scents have color, texture, and even sound. Joy smells to me like a citrus grove at midday, a bright yellow, tinkling aroma, rough as lemon peel. Grief is the smell of cooled ashes and damp wool, gray, dull, viscous. My grandmother's love, who was also a nose, smelled of vanilla buns and lavender soap, a warm, lilac, velvety scent that wrapped me like a cashmere blanket. She taught me everything: how to distinguish the hundreds of shades of rose scent, how to capture the fleeting aroma of almond blossom, how to construct a perfume composition so it tells a story. "Remember, Amélie," she said, sorting through petals in her small laboratory, "we don't just mix oils. We conduct an orchestra of memories. Each bottle is a moment sealed in glass." My life was a symphony. I woke up to the scent of freshly brewed coffee and honeysuckle outside the window. My work at one of the oldest perfume houses in Grasse was my passion. I had Luc, a botanist whose hands smelled of earth, tomato tops, and verbena. Image of a man's hands holding a soiled plant. This green, tart, and vibrant scent was synonymous with home and tranquil happiness to me. I was so absorbed in my symphony of scents that I couldn't imagine that one day my orchestra might simply fall silent, leaving me in a deafening, sterile, unbearable silence. My life until I was 30 was like a perfectly composed perfume pyramid. The top notes are light and sparkling. Childhood in my grandmother's garden, filled with the scents of peonies and ripe raspberries. The heart notes are deep and rich, returning to Grasse after studying in Paris, my first serious job, and meeting Luc. His love was like the absolute of a centifolia rose to me, complex, multifaceted, precious. The base notes are warm and enveloping. Our house with the garden he created for me quiet evenings, confidence in the future. Scented with sandalwood and moss, the scents of eternity. I remember the day I finished my best perfume, More. The client wanted a scent that would embody the joy of returning home. I searched for a long time for the key note, and found it by chance, in a modest bouquet of wildflowers Luc brought me. It was sweet clover. Its sweet aroma of hay and vanilla instantly transported me to the attic of my grandmother's house. I built the entire composition around this note, adding chamomile, linden blossom, a drop of honey, and warm milk. When I played the final version for Luc, he closed his eyes and smiled. "Grandma's house," he whispered. Amazing. The perfume was a resounding success. I was called one of the most talented noses of my generation. I felt omnipotent. I could control the strongest and most ancient sense, the sense of smell. I could create memories, evoke emotions, tell stories without words. I was sure this gift would be with me forever. It all started with a common flu. When the illness subsided, I realized something was wrong. Smells returned, but they were distorted. Coffee smelled like burnt rubber. The scent of roses in the garden became flat and sour. The doctor said it was parosmia, post-infectious damage to the olfactory receptors. It usually goes away, he said. I clung to this usually. But weeks passed, then months. The distortions persisted. The world turned into a room of distorted mirrors. I couldn't eat. The taste of my favorite dishes became disgusting. I couldn't be around Luke. The scent of his skin, which I loved so much, now seemed alien and unpleasant. I became irritable and withdrawn. It's temporary, my love, Luke coaxed me. Everything will be fine. But I saw confusion in his eyes. He didn't understand my horror. For him, it was an annoying nuisance. For me, it was like Beethoven going deaf. I continued to go to work, but it was torture. I tried to create new formulas, relying on memory and intuition, but it was like drawing blindfolded. And then something terrible happened. One morning, I woke up and smelled nothing. Nothing at all. I held a jar of coffee beans to my nose. Silence. A bottle of the most pungent neroli essential oil. Silence. I walked out into the garden, where after the night's rain, the air should have been buzzing with scents. But there was only emptiness. A sterile, vacuum-like emptiness. Parosmia gave way to anosmia. A complete loss of smell. The world died for me. It became two-dimensional, like an old, faded photograph. Food turned into tasteless biomass. Flowers became mere splashes of color. My entire library of scents, my entire symphony of memories, all of it erased. It wasn't just the loss of one of my 5 senses. It was the loss of myself. My entire personality, my entire history, was written in the language of sense. I remembered events, but I could no longer feel them. I found myself cut off from my past, from my emotions. I quit my job and fell into a deep depression. I don't know who I am without this, I told Luke. I'm nothing. A waste of space. You're Amélie, he replied, his voice heavy with pain. I love you, not your gift. But I didn't believe him. I was sure he loved the old Amélie, the sorceress, the conductor of fragrances. And what could he possibly love in this empty, burned-out shell I'd become? I began to push him away. Our home, once reeking of happiness, became filled with the scent of awkwardness and alienation, which, fortunately or unfortunately, I no longer sensed. My connection with Luke had thinned like old parchment. He tried to reach out to me, but I erected a wall of silence around myself. How could I explain to him that his touch, devoid of the familiar scent of his skin, felt like that of a stranger? How could I tell him that the dinners he so lovingly prepared were nothing more than a series of tasteless textures to me? One evening, he brought me a sprig of blooming jasmine from his greenhouse. Image of a sprig of white jasmine. It was a variety that only revealed its fragrance at night. We used to sit in the garden for hours, inhaling its sweet, intoxicating scent. Remember? He asked, holding out the flower to me. I took it. I saw its delicate white petals. I felt their waxy coolness on my cheek. But he was silent. He was dead to me. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't do this anymore. I don't remember, Luke, I said in a flat, lifeless voice. I don't remember anything. And I don't want you to live with a ghost. You deserve the real thing. That was the end. He left a week later. Quietly, without a fuss. He simply packed his things, smelling of earth and verbena, which I no longer smelled, and walked out of my life. I was left alone in my sterile, soundless world. Loneliness was like a room without windows or doors. I sold our house because I couldn't bear to see the garden we'd created together. I moved into a small, anonymous apartment and lived off my savings. I stopped seeing friends because I couldn't bear their pitying glances. I severed all ties with the perfume world. I sat by the window all day, watching life pass by. I watched the baker bring hot baguettes out into the street, and I knew they should smell like heaven, but to me they were just pieces of porous paper. I watched lovers kiss in the rain, and I knew the air should be filled with the scent of ozone and wet asphalt, but to me it was just gray water. The world continued to speak its own language, but I had gone deaf. The turning point came on one of my darkest days. Wandering aimlessly through the market, I instinctively ran my hand over a crate of velvety peaches. And then suddenly stopped. The soft, slightly fluffy texture beneath my fingers was so vivid, so alive, that something clicked in my memory. I couldn't smell it, but I remembered it. Sweet, honeyed, sunny. It was only a shadow, an echo, but it was there. From that day on, I began to relearn how to live. I began to explore the world through my other senses, trying to find bypasses to my lost memories. I went into the forest not to smell the pine trees, but to feel the prickly needles beneath my bare feet. I bought spices not for their aroma, but for their color and texture, saffron threads like sunset rays and round black peppercorns. I listened to the music, trying to guess what scent it might have. Vivaldi was lemon and basil for me, and Chopin was iris and violets. One day, I found my old work journals. Hundreds of notebooks, covered in my own handwriting, where I'd described every ingredient, every formula. Jasmine Sambac Absolute. Top notes are green, almost animalic. Heart, honeyed, fruity, with a hint of banana peel. Dry down, indolic, narcotic, color, deep indigo, sound, cello. Reading this, I realized I had something left. My knowledge, my memory, and my words. I started an anonymous blog called Anosmic Diary. I began describing the world of smells from my memory, but now I did it differently. I translated them into the language of other senses. I wrote about the rough taste of cinnamon, the violet sound of lavender, the cool texture of mint. My blog found its audience. People suffering from anosmia from all over the world began writing to me. They thanked me for giving them back a piece of their world, for giving them words for their loss. I was no longer alone. I had found my new tribe, the tribe of those who live in silence. One day, my former boss at a perfume house wrote to me. He'd read my blog. He said they had a young, technically gifted perfumer working for them, but his scents lacked soul. He knows all about molecules, he wrote, but he doesn't know what a violet cries for. Could you mentor him? Not as a nose, but as a poet, as a storyteller. I agreed. My work with this young man, Antoine, was a revelation. I couldn't appreciate his creations with my nose, but I could appreciate them with my mind and heart. I listened to his ideas and then told him stories. You want to create the scent of morning mist? I'd say. Then forget about aquatic notes. Think about texture. Mist, it's damp and cool. Use orris root, it smells cool and earthy. Add a drop of violet leaf for a wet, green feel. Your scent shouldn't be like water, but like a cool sensation on your skin. I taught him to listen to silence. And he succeeded. Under my guidance, he created several amazing, original fragrances. I had found my new calling. I no longer created perfumes. I created perfumers. Many years have passed. My sense of smell has never returned. Sometimes, in moments of intense emotional upheaval, I catch phantom scents, a shadow of Grandma's buns or the ghost of the earthy scent in Luke's arms. It lasts for a moment and then vanishes. I've learned to treasure these moments like the rarest of jewels. I'm a respected consultant and the author of several books in which I attempt to create a grammar of scent. I teach people not just to smell, but to hear, see, and smell. This evening, I'm sitting in my small garden. The night-blooming jasmine is blooming. I can't smell its divine fragrance, but I see its white stars against the darkening sky. I touch its cool, waxy petals. I hear the rustle of its leaves in the wind. And I realize that my world, though quieter, hasn't become poorer. It's simply speaking to me in a different language. And I finally learned to translate it.